Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a weekly show about all things LionWing, localization, tabletop games, and Japanese games. I'm your host, Bradley Hailstorm. I'm the founder and president of LionWing, and tonight we got a lot on our plate. So if this is your first time joining us, thank you for tuning in. This is our flagship show, so this is the big weekly show that we do every week, though we have a sister show as well these days called LionWing Plays, which takes place on Monday, and we, play LionWing games. That takes place at the same time, 9 p.m. EST on Twitch, but you tuned in for Talks tonight, LionWing Talks, and I've got some talking to do. I've got some talking to do because we have not a record number of questions. Last week we had 19 questions submitted by listeners in the community. Tonight we also have 19 questions submitted by listeners in the community. So we didn't beat last week, but we tied it. I'll take it. Last week was pretty crazy, 19 questions. This week's questions got a little silly at times. I think people were just trying to inflate that question number, trying to beat those 19 questions of last week. But we still have plenty of great questions, and I'm going to be answering them. So if this is indeed your first time watching, thank you for joining us. If you're watching on playback, thanks for watching us on playback. We have a format that we follow here. I first start off with an introduction, as you see, but then I move into answering community questions, and then we'll move into project updates, and then we'll sign off. Tonight, I've got some exciting project updates, specifically as it pertains to Wild Hunt Festival, as well as Embryo Machine. We're going to be showing off a little bit of Embryo Machine tonight. I have another model ready to go that I haven't shown off yet, so tonight you're going to get a first look. So if you're joining us to see some Embryo Machine news, you picked a good night to join us because I'm going to be showing some stuff off. But like I said, I've also got some Wild Hunt Festival news, and it's exciting news. Though at this point, most people probably already know the news if you follow us on social, if you're in the Discord, or if you were a backer of the Wild Hunt Festival campaign, then you got an update last night about this very news, but I'm still going to share it during the project updates section. So that's our format. I will be answering questions as we go along. So if you are in the chat and you're joining us in real time, drop me a question in the chat and I will answer it. That's how it happens. I've got someone in the chat saying, is it normal that I have no sound? Well, I hope that's not normal, because that would mean that no one can hear me right now and I'm talking for no one. And I hope I'm talking for someone. So if you're in the chat and you can hear me, just give me a little heads up that you can indeed hear me. That would be helpful. But until I get some say of whether or not people can hear me live or not, I'm going to proceed as if they can. So I'm going to move into some questions. In fact, I'm going to ask a question to the chat real quick to ensure that they can indeed hear me. And while I wait for that answer, I'm going to pull up my questions list here. So these shows, I try to keep these shows to around an hour, but I don't think I've ever actually gotten to an hour. I think I'm always well over an hour on these shows. And I think tonight's probably going to be the same thing. I think we'll probably go an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes, just based on the number of questions that I have and the project updates that I have to talk about. So that's that. Let's get to these questions. Still have someone in the chat saying they can't hear me, which hopefully is not the case. This won't be fun for you, for anyone watching on playback, but for those joining us live, I'm going to do something real quick to see if my audio is coming through. Give me a moment. All right, so we've got someone saying they can hear me. That's good. All right, so we are going to proceed as planned. Sorry about that. Let's get to our questions, 19 of them. Number 1, is there a Japanese equivalent to BGG to help us find the games you tease out? Since there's a lot of self-publish, it's hard to use a big store as the sole source of info. So this was kind of answered by someone else in the chat, but I'll piggyback off of what that person threw out as a Japanese alternative to BGG. And I'll also throw out something that wasn't talked about when you originally asked this question, Sai, and that is so you can use Bodoge. Bodoge is a good website. It's a great archival database site for all Japanese board games. Any board game that passes through some sort of publisher and gets published in Japan, be it natively Japanese or international games that get localized, you will be able to find that game on Bodoge's website. I actually don't particularly like Bodoge, despite the fact that I consult it and use it frequently. I mean, weekly, multiple times a week. I'm usually visiting Bodoge for some reason or another. I actually like Game Market's website more. GameMarket.jp is my favorite go-to database for Japanese board games. They focus on all caliber, all sizes of games in terms of small indie published games, self-published games to the larger big company published games. But it tends to be more focused on indie developers, which is the space that LionWing dwells in. So naturally, I'm going to be drawn to GameMarket.jp a little bit more than Bodoge. I also like Game Market's website because it's fast, it's clean, and it's streamlined. So it's super intuitive. Bodoge is kind of bloated. It's you look at it and it's like, oh, what is happening on my screen right now? My eyes hurt by how much graphics and graphic design work is happening on one screen at one time. So Bodoge's website feels kind of messy and a little overwhelming. There's just stuff everywhere. Game Market's website is very straightforward. It still looks nice, but it takes kind of the opposite approach where it's sort of like less is more. It takes a very minimalistic approach, but there's still plenty of graphics per game. And so you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get everything that you need when it comes to the description of the game, the stats of the game, player count, ages, genre, et cetera, et cetera. You'll also get the designers. Typically, you'll get the designer's website and or social media handles, which is super cool too. Because then if you find a game, you can just follow that designer on Twitter or wherever. But you also get descriptions of the game as well. So you get everything that you need. The only thing that you don't get on GameMarket.jp that you do on Bodoge's website is Bodoge has user reviews. A lot of people don't use the user review section, which is a bummer because you'll find that, it feels like half of the games on Bodoge have no user reviews. And it doesn't really seem to matter like what size the game is. It could be a super popular one or a super indie one. And inexplicably, there's either no reviews or a ton of reviews, and it doesn't really matter the size or popularity of that game. So there is the opportunity for user reviews, but a lot of people don't leave them, which is a bummer. Game Market's website does not have a space for user reviews. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, then yeah, maybe check out Bodoge. But honestly, the two work best in tandem. I use them both. I'll visit, if I'm looking at a game on Bodoge, I'll then also look it up on Game Market's website as well, and vice versa. So use both. They're both great. They both, I think, serve slightly different purposes. If you can only choose one, I would actually say GameMarket.jp is the one you want to go for. Bodoge, so someone in the chat said, so Bodoge is the literal JPBGG. No, it's not the literal JPBGG, but it certainly is the Japanese equivalent to BGG. Though BGG is pretty comprehensive and super user-friendly. It's hard to compete with BGG, so if you're going to go and you're going to look at Bodoge and you're going to expect just kind of like a straight one-to-one translation of like how the site is designed and how you access it and how you click around and navigate it, you're not going to get that from Bodoge. You're not going to like go there and say, oh yeah, this is the exact layout as BGG. This is perfect, because it's not that at all. It's pretty unintuitive, and yeah, it's a little clustery. Yes, the person who said that said, sorry, that was a stuffy UX joke. Yes, I assumed as much, but I was going to answer it anyway. All right, on to question 2. Are there plans for games localized in more languages than English when you eventually grow big enough that it becomes viable? Yeah, so there are plans for additional languages. Once we hit certain internal milestones, we've got to grow as a company to be able to offer more languages in our games. That's just the economics of the situation. I will say, however, there is, so long as the contract on this one game comes through, then we will be offering at least one game in the near-ish future that offers or will eventually offer multiple languages. That very topic of additional languages is being actively talked about for this game, and it was brought up by the original publishers. Most of the time, published. No, let me backtrack. There has been no other game that we have ever published or will publish in the current future, let's say over the next 18 months, where the original designers or the original Japanese publisher has even asked us about additional languages. So it's really a decision that we make. I think, will probably make sense if everything goes accordingly. I still reserve the right not to pursue that if it doesn't make sense financially. But this one particular game that we're hoping comes through, I think has the best chance out of all of our games, current and coming, to have additional language support, which is really exciting. But as your question alluded to, you really have to be of a certain size for it to make sense, for it to be financially viable to ship games to different regions, do the localization work in other languages, and then set up the distribution deals that come along with selling games, let's say in Europe. It's not like an easy thing where it's like, all right, let's just localize the game in another language, then we sell it. Like, no, there's like all these other steps, many steps that you have to consider. In fact, the localization part is probably the easiest aspect of adding additional languages to a game. It's everything that comes after that, from printing and supply chain to international fulfillment, international warehousing, who you have that can set you up to get into retailers or distribution chains or in-channel marketing overseas or wherever you're going to be selling it that's not in your native territory. So there's a lot that goes into it, and none of it is all that fun to deal with, and it's especially not fun to deal with if you're not going to make any money off of it. So it's got to be the right game, you've got to be the right size of company, and you've got to have the right team in place who can handle additional languages and can help you out with all of those elements that I just discussed. Question 3. You talked already that some designers / publishers are averse to the crowdfunding model. Are there other reasons a partnership you propose doesn't interest the Japanese designers or publishers? Yeah, so usually if someone's not interested, it almost always falls into one or more of 4 categories. Print run size being kind of the biggest. I'll talk about that here in a second. The MSRP in the new region. I'll talk about that here in a second. A non-exclusive versus an exclusive contract, and then issues with right of first refusals. So starting with print run size, if you are going to be utilizing a traditional distribution model, not Kickstarter, most designers or original publishers, rightfully so, want to know what your print run's going to be. Are you talking about giving them X percentage based off 1,000 copy print run? That's not all that appealing to most people. Especially if you're looking at the standard royalty practice of anywhere between 5 and 12%. Well, it's like, all right, split the difference, called 8%. 8% off 1,000 copies of a game that sells for $35 MSRP, not really appealing. A 5,000 copy print run with those numbers involved? Okay. Now the original publisher, the original designer, stands to gain something. That makes sense for them. So it can be the print run that really kind of, scare someone off or helps them decide, you know what, that's not something I want to pursue. Your print run's not high enough. It's like the juice isn't worth the squeeze for us, that kind of thing. The other thing is the MSRP in the new region. A lot of Japanese independent games sell for prices that are way higher than we would ever sell them for in the West. So a game in Japan might be sold for 7,000 yen, but here we're going to sell it for, 50 USD. Some designers will say, well, hold on a second. No, you got to sell it closer to my intended price. And if you say, well, no, we're not going to do that because it doesn't, the economics don't really make sense for that. When you do a large print run, we don't need to sell it at 70. Hate to break it to you, but your game's not worth 70. Because 7,000 yen roughly equates to about 70 USD. So you have those kinds of conversations, and someone can say, yeah, no, you got to be at or closer to what we were selling it for it to make sense for us. And it's one of those situations where for us, the publisher, the localization studio, we then have to say, all right, well, if that's what you're proposing, if that's your negotiation tactic, let me see if I can make it make sense for us to sell it at a higher price, to ensure that we're able to establish this contract. And sometimes you go back and you get a little closer and they say, all right, yeah, no, that's good enough for me. Thanks for getting a little bit closer. I think I feel comfortable with this now. And other times they say, that's not close enough. Sorry. It's like one of those thanks but no thanks situations. And in all of these scenarios, there's no hard feelings. I've never once had a Japanese designer or publisher say like, yeah, sorry, we're not going to pursue this. And they're angry about it. And I've never been angry about it either. It's like, it's just business at the end of the day, business wise, what we were proposing didn't work out for them, or conversely, what they were proposing didn't work out for us. And that's just the way it goes. So sometimes, it doesn't mean that it's any less of a bummer, especially if you have your heart set on publishing a game and you can't come to terms, because of one reason or another. It's always, it kind of sucks. You get your hopes up. I get my hopes up when I'm scouting games and I find a game that I'm like, all right, I like that game enough that I'm going to go through all the trouble to start engaging with this person. And if we finally get to the part where, we're in contract negotiations and we just can't make the contract work, at that point, I'm very invested in that game. Like I said before, like if I'm not 100% into a game, I'm not going to pursue it. That's just not me. I won't do good work if I'm not 100% into it. So I am 100% into everything starting from the minute that I decide I want to pursue that. And so to be that invested in the game and to be thinking out already kind of how you're going to sell the game, what you're going to do for the Kickstarter, what are the extras going to be, how are you going to price it, how many copies are you going to print, et cetera, et cetera. By the time you then finally get to the negotiating table and the deal falls through, it's a total letdown. It's like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I did all this work. The team was excited. We were already planning out how we were going to approach this, and it didn't materialize. It's not fun, but that's the way it goes. It is business at the end of the day. Not every contract that you seek out is ultimately going to work out. Some other things that people will get that will hold people back is if you're offering an exclusive publishing deal or a non-exclusive publishing deal. So most of our contracts are non-exclusive, which technically gives designers the ability to talk with other publishers to get that game published in either the same or other territories. No one has ever reached out to a secondary publisher to get a game that we're publishing published in the same territory or a different territory. But we always write it in the contract that they have that ability. Not everyone works like that, but I try to give our partners as many ways to make money as possible. And if they can make money by selling the game through two different publishers, preferably not in the same territory, but in two separate territories throughout the world, cool. I want the best for that publisher. I want that publisher to have a good experience with us. I don't want to limit that publisher. I don't want to feel like I'm controlling that person's work and ultimately how many people get to see their work and experience their work and play their game and have fun with their game and experience joy with that product that they made. I don't want to be the one that limits how much money that designer can make by saying you could only publish through me when it comes to releases outside of Japan. I never want to be that person. I'll never be that person. I've never written a contract as that person. But some people will say if a company were to kind of throw out like, no, this is an exclusive deal, they'll say, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me. And then something else that we don't do, but is not necessarily commonplace, but can happen nevertheless, is a publisher might write in what's called a right of first refusal clause, which essentially says, all right, we're going to publish game A in English. When you create game B, we automatically get first dibs on that game to say, yes, we want to publish that too, or no, we're going to pass. You can shop it around to other people. Some people write in the right of first refusal clauses, and that's just part of their contracts. We've never done that, but that can be a real deal breaker for some people. for all of the obvious reasons. But really, those four areas are really the only areas that would get in the way of of a of a designer deciding not to utilize you as the publisher. So really, I mean, it all kind of comes down to money at the end of the day. That's what every business contract is centered on, regardless of what other people say or have you believe. It always comes down to money. Okay, question 4. Now, question 4 is a 3-parter, so bear with me here. I'll answer them in order, one at a time. We were teased a non-Kickstarter game is coming at some point. The first question then, is how do you handle the logistics for such a product? Can you outsource it as well? Yeah, no, I mean, we could outsource it, I guess, but I don't. The the same teams that work on all of our Kickstarter projects are the same teams working on non-Kickstarter projects. Because there are 3 teams, you're always kind of like shifting projects. Team A finishes a project. If you got another project that needs to get working on, it shifts to Team A. If Team A is not finished with their product, but Team B is, then that new product shifts to Team B, and vice versa. It just keeps going around the table essentially. And it doesn't matter if it's a Kickstarter or a non-Kickstarter project for us anyway. All of our projects are fairly small-ish in scope, and so there's really no need to like have another team come on and work on a smaller non-Kickstarter project, because there's just no need for that with us. If you're talking about logistics though, of like, it's a non-Kickstarter game, how do you handle like the printing, the shipping coordination, the fulfillment of that game, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then it's handled in the same way that we do all of our Kickstarters. I have a set logistics person now. I didn't always have that person, but with Wild Hunt Festival, I hired someone just to work on supply chain, because it's stuff that doesn't excite me. It's stuff that I don't like to do. It's stuff that I find incredibly boring, and I like to be involved in projects. And the more that I'm involved in like supply chain stuff, the less I'm involved in projects. And I like having oversight of projects. Because I would rather get that right, whereas I would rather have someone else get right the logistics, supply chain, shipping, fulfillment, et cetera, et cetera. That way I don't have to worry about it. Now I can and I will do that whenever I need to, but it's not my preference. I recognized that early on, that, hey, that is not something that energizes me at all. I should not be doing things as the president of this company that do not energize me. That's why I'm the president of this company. I can delegate. So I learned my lesson with Cynomic HoloCMR, where I did, all of that stuff on my own. When it was finally all said and done, when it was all said and done, I was like, all right, I'm so glad I did that. I learned a lot, and I never want to fucking do it again. And now I won't be. So that's how we would handle that side of the logistics when it comes to non-Kickstarter projects. Hey, Sin, thanks for joining us. Question 2 from this same topic: How do you estimate the order quantity? Yeah, so estimating order quantity, especially for a non-Kickstarter project, but really for all projects, is something of a guess. So, it is a bit of a guessing game. Some of the ways that I've dealt with this to figure out like what is the right print run is talking to others in the industry with either similarly sized products or similar in nature products, so that I know, hey, we've got audience parity. The amount of copies you probably ordered for your audience, probably very similar for my audience as well. If you're printing 3,000 to 5,000 copies for most of your games for your audience, well, I know there's a lot of audience overlap. That's probably fair for me as well. Or I might say, all right, 3 to 5 is normal for you. Similar audience, I'm going to dial that down by 500 or 1,000. Knowing that I'm a smaller company and that I'm a newer company and that I don't have a legacy, yet behind this company where people know about us, that kind of thing. So some of it's talking with your peers. Some of it is hopefully utilizing Kickstarter. It's one of the reasons why Kickstarter is such a viable platform for the tabletop industry is it's a great way to do market research about, all right, how much of the audience actually wants a game like this? Okay, we got, like Sinome, we got 300 backers. All right, not a big audience for this game. Cool. 1,000 copies it is. You get a larger game with 1,500 to 8,000, somewhere between. All right, well, that informs you that you probably need a higher print run. So Kickstarter is wonderful in that. And then other times it's kind of just doing your own cobbling together of data points and saying, all right, based on the information that I have, I'm going to take a guess that we're probably around this mark. And you hope that you don't undershoot or overshoot it, which sort of leads into question 3 that this person had. Is there risk of running out of product fast? Well, I mean, always, though I'm always more concerned about the risk of not running out fast enough. I'd rather have too little product than too much product because it's way easier to print more games than it is to sell those games that haven't sold. So that's how I approach, print runs and print quantities. And where I worry, I will always worry about not running out fast enough as opposed to running out too fast. Everyone's different, though. You will definitely hear from other companies, especially bigger companies, that will absolutely be more concerned with running out, too quickly. But LionWing's a small company right now, so I don't have to worry about that as much. Question 5, can we convince you to always give away stickers in minimum pairs of 2 in the future to be able to stick one and keep one stored away just in case, especially if they're exclusive? So this person is talking about the holographic stickers that we will be distributing to the participants of the Operation Bulletstorm first inaugural Gun and Gun tournament that takes place in 2 weeks. Every participant in that tournament is going to get a sticker. And so this question comes in response to that of, hey, can you send them out in pairs of 2? That way we can use one and then keep one for collector's purposes. And the question is, or the answer is, I don't know yet. I will see how how future events go. If it sort of depends on how many people sign up. And that'll dictate, how many copies of stickers that we order. So I would say let's wait and see on that one. I'm undecided. And I'm undecided even for the Gun and Gun tournament. If you're like me, when you get stickers, and for whatever purpose, maybe it's for an event, but also maybe it's like a collector's edition of something that you ordered. A lot of like video games hand out stickers and their deluxe packages. If you're like me, you never use those stickers. They sit in the box and you love knowing that they're there, but you never, ever would actually use them or stick them on something because that would be like tarnishing your collector's edition, right? So it's never really been on my radar of, hey, you know what, I should offer too, because some people might actually want to use these stickers. I guess I always assumed everyone was like me and everyone just likes to look at their stickers. They don't like to stick them on anything. But I guess the point is I'm open to it, but I'm undecided right now. As Syntheria in the chat said, it's all about having the thing, not using it. That's right. That is exactly right. All right. Question 6. I'm going to ask the same question that I did last week because I'm greedy. Can we get another hint about Project Royal? Sure. So for those unaware, if you haven't been keeping up with the Discord or anything like that, we revealed the first hint about our upcoming summer Kickstarter, which we revealed that its code name is Project Royal. People have taken, shots at what this might mean. This question was asked in last week's LionWing Talks by this same person of, hey, can you give us a hint? And I said something to the effect of, yes, it's a card-driven board game. Most of our games are card games. This is not a card game. It's a board game that uses cards as its main mechanic. So that was the hint of last week. This week's hint, sure, I'll give you one. There's a good amount of Sakura Wars, Sakura Taisen, in Project Royal's DNA. So there's your hint. Sakura Wars, also called Sakura Taisen, is a 25-year-old Sega property. Started on the Sega Saturn and has seen numerous installments over the course of pretty much every console since the Saturn. Interestingly enough, despite being 20 to 25 years old, we've only ever seen 2 localized versions of Sakura Wars. The first being on the Wii/PS2 in Sakura Wars So Long My Love. And then I think it was 2019's aptly titled just Sakura Wars, which is my one of my favorite games of last generation of the PS4. So there's definitely lots of elements of that franchise in Project Royal. All right, catching up with the chat here. Someone said, gotta bling the laptop though. That's in reference to using the stickers. Let's see, what else here? Someone said, love the Kingdom Hearts 2 coffee cup in the background. That's right, yes. Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts. Absolutely terrible story. I mean, without a doubt, the most convoluted story in the history of games. And I don't feel like that's hyperbole. I really feel like that's just like objective fact. Okay, question 7. If there was no COVID, what would a typical year for LionWing look like? Live demos of games at conventions, in-person fan events, etc. Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. And I've either kind of answered this or I've alluded to what the answer might be in the early episodes of this series. 2020 hit. We were getting ready. We knew we were going to be launching Testament's Kickstarter with Japanime Games in February. I had planned to slowly transition more full-time to LionWing throughout 2020, kind of find 2021 to hit my stride, and then, kind of go from there. The pandemic fucked all that up. But instead of allowing the pandemic to slow down the progress of LionWing, I actually said, let's use the pandemic to accelerate LionWing. And so that's what I did. So I moved more full-time into LionWing. And 2020 was both our jumping off point and also catching our stride year. I was hoping, though I wasn't terribly hopeful, if that makes sense, that 2021 would be kind of the first year that LionWing attended conventions. And I wasn't terribly hopeful because I assumed, it's not like the pandemic was just magically disappeared here. But I was hopeful that, we'd be in a better place and conventions would come back. And it looks like some conventions will be coming back toward the end of the year, but really I would not consider 2021 as a convention year for pretty much any company, and certainly not for LionWing. So it'll be more like 2022 when we've got a more regular convention schedule. But that's what a typical year in LionWing would look like. So let's say 2022 is, for the most part, a normal year. We will still launch in 2022 3 to 4 Kickstarters, and we'll still launch 1 to 3 non-Kickstarter games. But we will be running events. We'll be running a lot of local stuff because it's not like there's a convention every weekend. So we will be running local events though, because I do have connections to a lot of local area stores. So we'll be utilizing that space to run events. But we'll be at pretty much all the big conventions once conventions are back, assuming 2022 is the year that conventions for the most part are back. We will be at a lot of the big ones, not every convention. We won't be at, I don't think, any overseas conventions at first. I'll have to see how that goes. I mean, I'll probably be at least one game market in 2022. Probably just by myself, but not as, LionWing. But international conventions, I don't think, we're quite there where that ROI makes a lot of sense right now. But conventions here in the US, yeah, we'll be at those. I can't tell you which ones right now, because no one really knows what those conventions are going to be for 2022, but we will definitely be there. And at those conventions, we will always be running at least one event, but probably multiple events, especially by that point, because we will have multiple games that are out, printed, ready to be purchased. And so we will be running events and tournaments pretty much all weekend long for a lot of those games. Not every game, and we'll likely cycle stuff, but there will be events and prizes happening at pretty much every convention that we run. So I think that answers your question. Okay, let's see here. What did I miss in the chat? Oh, yeah, someone's saying, they'll visit us if we come to Canada or Montreal. Yeah, so if we venture out, when we venture outside the States, it'll be a soft venturing outside the States, and Canada will be kind of our testing ground for that. So I don't know if it'll be in Montreal, but you never know. I mean, that I have not like decided on where in Canada we would make as our first destination outside the U.S. But yeah, Canada is a great place to get our feet wet with stepping outside the boundaries of the U.S. All right. Question 8. As president, you are much more accessible to us compared to other publishers. Was this organic or was it intentional from the outset? Yeah, so it was a little bit of both. And I say it was a little bit of both because I always had plans to be available to the community. I did not plan to do so through this format. I set up the Discord right around Sinome with the intention of being accessible pretty much anytime, because I'm always on Discord, no matter where in the world I am, or if I'm at home or if I'm not, I'm always checking Discord to some degree. So the idea was, hey, we're going to open up a Discord. It'll be a place for fans to, communicate or schedule games or whatever the case may be, but it'll also be an avenue to get direct access to me. Most publishing teams, and especially the president of most publishers, are not so easily accessed through Discord. And so I was like, you know what, I don't care if that's not the industry norm. It's going to be the norm for us. And so the plan was just to be accessible through Discord and, through social or whatever. But that's primarily how I wanted to be accessible. 2020 hit though, and it was like, hold on a second. Everyone's inside. We're all on computers. We're putting out more and more Kickstarters. We're putting out more and more content. The Discord is growing. Wait a second. There's even more of a desire, I think, to be connected to people right now. And I was feeling the same way. Like, I want to be connected to people too. How can I do that? Okay, well, I could do it through, originally it was going to be a podcast because I listened to a shit ton of podcasts. And I was like, why doesn't LionWing have its own podcast? Like, I could talk for hours about games, either ours or other people's games. And so the original idea for LionWing Talks was a podcast. We recorded a pilot episode last year and everything. It was me and 3 other folks. So there was a panel of 4 of us. And we talked about board games. We talked about video games. We talked about localization. We talked a little bit about LionWing. It was in the can. It was done. There were some audio issues with it. And if you know me, you know I do not like to put stuff out there that doesn't sound good. And so I couldn't figure out a way to make that recording of the 4 of us sound good. So I kind of sat on it and finally determined, all right, you know what? I think we need to re-record this. And so I told everyone, like, hey, let's re-record that. We don't have to talk about the same stuff. We'll just talk about new stuff. But I want to re-record what is going to be episode, either 0 or 1. And we all were like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And it just never came to fruition. And so some time passed and I said, wait a second. I don't need to try to coordinate across 4 people's schedules. I can just coordinate across mine and I can do this whenever I want. Oh, and you know what? I like watching streams just as much as I like listening to podcasts. And most people listen to podcasts when they're in their cars or when they're outside, and no one's driving right now and no one's going outside. So we're watching a lot more video. Fuck it. I'll just take LionWing Talks to video and I'll stream it. And that's how I'm going to connect with people. They're going to be able to connect with me. They're going to be able to ask me questions. They're going to be able to see my face. If you're like me, you like to see the people behind your games, especially like publishing companies. I want to see who runs the place. And not a lot of people, put that out there. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that then. I want to do that. I want people to know who's the man behind the curtain, so to speak. And because it's what I would want to know. And thus I said, all right, we're doing this thing. We're streaming. And so I invested in, the equipment, and here we are. Let me catch up with the chat here. I missed a little bit. I feel your involvement like this got me to back a bunch of games. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, no, I'm glad it did something for you. I'm glad it resonated. Someone in the chat said it definitely sold me on Testament. Good to hear. Good to hear. Sin Theory said this kind of engagement got me to build a lot of faith in the LionWing brand when it started. It's what made me really want to help out in the capacity that I'm helping out. Yeah. I mean, Sin, it's kind of like, really Frank, Sice, and all of that. That's exactly what I was hoping that this would do, is just, show you that, like, hey, we're people behind these games. We're just people making games, and we like games just like everyone else likes games. And shit, let's just talk about games on a stream. That sounds cool. And I'll talk about LionWing stuff because obviously I'm passionate about that, and other people might want to hear about what goes on behind the scenes. Someone said, I love his name in hospitality. Come on, Hailstorm. That's one sick name. Yeah. Right on. I'm glad you guys like it. I'm glad you like this forum. That means a lot to me, seriously. Question 9. Could you send a copy of Wad Hunt to the Rules Girl or another YouTuber? Then they can do a video about learning to play in an absurdly small amount of time. My play group has some casual players that really benefit from those videos, and the rest of the group is ready to play. I like them too because I don't want a review or fluff. I don't want a review or fluff in the middle of being told, rook moves in straight rooks move in straight lines. That's probably what that says. Yeah, so we actually have one of those videos. It's not from the Rules Girl. I like the Rules Girl. In fact, the Rules Girl was going to do our Testament tutorial. And then timing and scheduling fell through on that, and it didn't end up happening. So what I did for Wild Hunt Festival is I went with Cardboard Stacker because I like cardboards. I had seen Cardboard Stackers work already for other projects. I really liked it. And so we use Cardboard Stacker for all of our digital tutorials. So he did Wild Hunt Festivals, Gun and Guns, Embryo Machines. He's working on Project Royals right now. So that'll continue. So if you didn't see that, person who sent this question in, go check out our YouTube page, and the video is there. I really, really love Rules Girl. I think they do a fantastic job over at that production. In fact, the first time I saw a Rules Girl tutorial was with actually Arclight's Deca Slayer game, and I was like, oh, that is a sweet tutorial. Like, it's in and out, it's clean. It's exactly what I want because, like you were saying, person who sent this question in, I don't really like reading all that fluff or having to watch all that fluff or a review just to learn how to play the game. In fact, I like to learn how to play my games from videos. So confession, although I think I may have confessed this at other times, I hate reading rule books. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It is boring. It is so boring to me. So anytime that I can watch a video of how something is played, I am down. And I'm more of that kind of visual learner. I'm less of a read words and assimilate information from words on a page, and more of a let me watch someone do it as opposed to let me read about it. So I'm very much so a kinesthetic learner in that regard. So I definitely am with you, and we have videos of those, so check it out. Question 10. Can we hear some of your favorite builds or loadouts for Gun and Gun, Testament, and Embryo Machine? All right, all of them. Sure. So Gun and Gun, one of my favorite builds is Hibana with Kage Some and Enra and Dodome. So you got to have Overheat, obviously. to utilize Dodome, but that is usually, do I want to say usually? It's often my go-to loadout. Testament, yes. So I typically roll with, again, if you've watched previous videos, you know I haven't played Testament in a while, for good reasons. But when I was playing Testament, all the way up until we went to print, especially, my favorite party at that time was Kukurito as my healer, Reardane as my tank, Lunana as my DPS, and then Shay as my buffer slash support. Let's see here. You didn't ask about Wild Hunt Festival, but there's probably some people out there who want to hear that, so I'll go over that as well. I still play I still play Wild Hunt Festival, so I'm not as averse to Wild Hunt Festival as I am Testament. It's funny because I definitely hit like that localization fatigue. I hit localization fatigue in pretty much every project that I work on. Just like I said, I'm like 100% invested in a project, and so there is no like 99% of Bradley being invested in a game. It's always 100% of Bradley. So by the time that I get a chance to take a break and I don't have to be like 100% invested any longer because things have already gone off to the printer, I definitely finally take a breath and take a step back and don't want to touch that game for a while. But Wild Hunt Festival has been one of the games where that's happened sort of in the least capacity. So like Testament was like hard fatigue where I got done with it. We sent things off to the printer. I was like, fuck it, I don't want to touch that game again. Wild Hunt Festival was, oh, okay, I need a break from this. But then it was also that game that I came back to like a month later, and I still play regularly. So Wild Hunt Festival, my current party tends to be, and I really should change it up because once I find a party, I like to just stick with it and play it into the ground until I'm really sick of playing it. So I should probably change this up. This has been my favorite party for a while now. Manad as my healer, Urase as my tank, Thora as my DPS, and then either Luca or Elizabeth as my specialist because they're Luca, who's a spellcaster, and Elizabeth, who's a troubadour, are very situational characters. And so you've really got to like know the ins and outs of that battle engine to understand how you're best going to use a specialized character. And that's their classification in the game. They are considered special characters. You know, we got tanks, we got healers, we got DPS. They're special characters. There's only two of them in the game, and it's both of those two. It's Luca and Elizabeth. So I really like having them in a party. A lot of people, like my group, playtest group, even in the Eastern scene, don't like to necessarily roll with specials in their statics. I love it though. Although I think they make probably fights a little bit harder than they need to be, I really, really, really love their versatility because they can play practically any role. And so I love having that, that jack of all trade, master of none, because I've already got three of those in the group anyway. I've got my holy trinity. So that last person, I guess I could round out with another DPS or a different type of DPS, or a support character of some kind. But I like the specialized class just because they offer something so unique to each battle, and how the special classes are integrated into Wild Hunt Festival's combat system is just really neat, and it makes them very versatile and usable, but also very situational. So it's a class that you really have to think a lot about, and I like that element of challenge there. So I like to roll with one of those two. I guess if you ask me, do I typically play Luca or Elizabeth? I think I probably play Elizabeth more, and that's strictly because I like her visual design a little bit more. So, is it too late to back Wild Hunt Festival? You literally have 6 days to do so. So it's not too late, but it will be too late this time next week. So if you want to back it, make it very soon. You would still be able to pre-order after next week, but you won't be able to late pledge, which means you won't get any of the Kickstarter extras at that point. So, I mean, if the Kickstarter extras aren't important to you, just wait. You'll get your game much later than obviously the backers and late pledgers will. You'll still get it though. So if you're like, I don't care about any of that stuff and I can wait for a while, you don't have to adhere to the hard deadline of next Tuesday. But if you want to get the extras and you do want to get it soon, yeah, go ahead. Back it this week. Let's see here. Embryo Machine is a little bit harder to identify with like favorite builds just because it is a deck constructor. I mean, I guess I could identify like a favorite pre-built deck, but I don't really play with the pre-builds. And at this point, it's been so long since I played with pre-builds, I can't even remember like what my go-to pre-built was. I mean, I guess if you're like, you have to play a character in Embryo Machine and it has to be a pre-built, I would just say, all right, just give me everything about Zimmer. Just give me Zimmer, give me his pre-built deck, and I'll just roll with Zimmer. I really like Zimmer a lot. I don't know if Zimmer is my favorite. Yeah, I don't know if Zimmer is my favorite Embryo Machine in the game. I mean, I think Fornice is probably my favorite, but I've been liking Zimmer more lately. I've been playing. I haven't really hit fatigue yet with Embryo Machine, so I've been playing it more consistently, more regularly. And I've been liking Zimmer lately. I played Fornice for a long time, months and months. I really liked Fornice. I've kind of moved away from that a little bit, so I like Zimmer right now. One of those two. Yeah, so I think overall, someone in the chat said, what's your favorite mecha or embryo and Embryo Machine? Like, if I had to choose just a favorite mecha overall, I guess it would probably be Fornice. Just, I love Fornice. Yeah. Yeah, someone had said in episode 2.5, which I did with the graphic designer of Embryo Machine. If you haven't checked out that episode, go check it out. I have a guest host on, and we talk about what it was like to localize Embryo Machine. I did mention in that chat that Fornice was my favorite. So I'm nothing if not consistent, because Fornice is still my favorite. Okay. Question 11. Are there games in the pipeline for which you are working on your own writing or planning to create your own writing like you did for Testament? Unfortunately, not at this time. Testament was one of just those perfect games that had enough lore to get people interested and had the right designer to say, we've only got enough lore to get people interested, but we don't have anything further. If you want to build on that lore further, you have complete creative control over that. Go for it. Most designers that we've worked with are very involved in every element of their game, from the visual presentation to the gameplay mechanics to the narrative / lore / world building. Kuro, though, is one of those unique designers where he creates this awesome game with amazingly beautiful visual motifs, a little bit of story, and then says, do whatever you want with this thing. You want to change the gameplay mechanics? Go for it. I'd encourage you not to, because it's going to mess up the balance. But if you want to do that, I don't care. You're publishing it. At the end of the day, I get paid money either way. Like, whether this game does well or not, whether you screw it up with tinkering with the mechanics, I don't care. You're going to pay me either way. So what does it matter to me? But he's also that way about the lore in his games, where he's like, there's a little bit of lore there, but I don't really like writing on that stuff. But if you want to write it, go for it. I don't care what you do with the world. I'd like to see it. Like, if you want to run stuff by me, I might be able to help out, because I might have something in my head that I never wrote down that I might know that would help you write some lore. But at the end of the day, if you want to take this lore and turn it into your own, have at it. Just keep me involved in some degree, just even if that's by just letting me know what you're doing with it. So maybe he has design fatigue. Probably. I mean, the dude churns out, I don't even know how many games a year. He's been a little slower lately, though. He's been a little slower lately. I don't know what's going on there. He hasn't, a lot of his games haven't been picked up for international publication. There haven't been many English releases of his stuff. I mean, Testament was the last time. There for a while, a lot of Kuro stuff was getting picked up for English releases, and that just hasn't happened yet. So I don't know if that is just felt defeating, or he's been dejected by that, or if he's been frustrated by the process, or if like he's got other things in his life going on where he's like, I can't design as much as I used to. I mean, designing isn't his full-time job. He's got a full-time job, and then he just designs at night essentially. And yet somehow at one point the dude was like churning out, you know, 10 games a year. I mean, it was just like wild. And I wish that was an exaggeration, but it simply is not. I mean, there was a time when I think he produced 10 games in a single year. I just like, on top of having a full-time job. It's just, it was wild. So yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Manifest Destiny is really great. We have inquired about various projects with them for the future, have gotten close here and there, but nothing's really, been inked. I will say this though, Kuro's got some stuff coming out. He's got an anime football game, American football game coming out that looks really, really rad. It's got some serious Eye Shield 21 vibes. That is very appealing to me. There are plenty of games that Kuro has that are very appealing to me, but it's just trying to figure out, all right, where would this Kuro game fit in the lineup, and what would I do with it? Would I put it on Kickstarter? Would I release it through traditional distribution, et cetera, et cetera? The good news about Kuro is his stuff doesn't need to go to Kickstarter. His name is known enough, and he's got some games that have not been released in English, but have a big enough following despite that, where you could get away with not releasing it on Kickstarter and it would still sell really well with limited marketing, just because his name does hold value. And certain games that certain people want in English, those people are still around and are still wanting those games in English. So it would make sense to work with Manifest Destiny and Kuro in that capacity. It just, we have not found the right timing, to do something with some of his games. Question 12. What are the limitations imposed by the licensing contracts in regards to additional content / alternate use of the content? Do you need to ask permission before putting games on Tabletop Simulator? Do you need permission to create derivative work, artwork, STL files, and soundtracks? What about game elements or balancing? So you need permission for all of that. And most people will want that written to the contract, that yes, you can create these things. If you're going to sell additional like content, soundtrack, STL files, they're going to put stipulations on that. They're going to put a royalty on those specific things. It might be a higher royalty than what they would ask for with the game. It might be lower because they see it as a less essential thing. And, that's, it's not like they're going to sell a whole lot. They're just doing this for fun. I don't want a huge royalty on it. It is what it is. But we've always needed permission, and we've always asked for permission to create those things. We've never just created those things and not told anyone about it, and then just said like, hey, we've got a soundtrack for this game. We've never done that. It's not in my nature to do that. I always want to make sure that the designer, the creator of the property, is okay with anything that we are going to produce that is, supplementary material. So we almost always have some kind of clause, and it's usually not even a clause, it's an appendix. It's usually our Appendix B in our licensing contracts that goes over how many copies we're going to sell of our additional work and how much we're going to sell those things for, and what the royalty cut is going to be for the designer per unit sold. So you always need permission for all of those things. Some folks will not allow you to create derivative, products. They will just straight up tell you, no, we don't want that. We don't want you creating anything for our game. If you want something created that is some sort of supplementary material, you tell us, we will create it. You will pay us to create it. And we will either then charge a lower royalty percentage because you've already paid us to create the content, or we won't charge you any royalty percentage because you've already paid us for the content. And we'll just take that payment as, part of the royalty payment. And that'll factor into, how much we invoice you for the creation of that content. So, that's typically how that works. I'll tell you what, though, we've had a really good response to our soundtracks. People love the idea of having soundtracks made for their games. I think Kuro about lost his mind when we showed him the first track, which was the Testament trailer track. That was the first track we showed him. And I mean, beyond excited to hear it. Loved the direction of it. Loved the idea of his game. He didn't say this, but I think it was one of those instances of where like my game means something to someone so much that they created this whole other thing that I never would have created or thought to create, and it just rounds out the world that I made with Testament. So I think he was really, kind of smitten with that. And so soundtracks, and I do mean every designer that we've worked with so far and that we are working with currently for future projects has been extremely excited about the soundtracks, and most want to be involved in some way, even if it's just providing you reference pieces. Like, hey, when I was creating the game, I always had this soundtrack, or I always had this track from this game in my head. That happened with Embryo Machine. We said like, hey, this sounds really weird, but we like, our thing is we create soundtracks for our games. Are you okay with that? And Kawakami-san's came back and was like, we're absolutely okay with that. And hey, here's what we always pictured when we were creating this game. And it was like, boom, 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 boom. All these like YouTube videos of like, here's a song, here's a song, here's a song, here's a song. Like, these are the things that we had in mind. And it was really cool and really helpful to get that kind of feedback. Cause it's like, all right, cool. You just did the work for us. Like you gave me all the references I could ever need. I will pass this along to the composer, and we'll try to take elements and theming out of those reference tracks so that, they're embedded in the sound that we create for Embryo Machine. And so Project Royal's designer, probably the most invested in the soundtrack idea. And I'm going to leave it at that because you'll find out what that really means soon enough. Question 13. Do you dislike the fact that this quest for higher question numbers leads to less serious questions to pad out the content like I do? No, in fact, I love all manner of questions, silly or not silly. Question 14 is a follow-up on that. We're getting tourneys, leagues with rewards, fan contests, Kickstarter exclusives, soundtracks, and a whole lot more. Are there plans for even more original ways to enhance the experience of the backers? Yes, maybe. So for Sinome, if you go back and look at that campaign, we got backers involved in a different level, or on a different level in that campaign, by giving them an opportunity to be involved in the creation of their own character card. We'd like to bring that back. It tends to be pricey. I mean, for Sinome, I think we offer 2 different types of character cards that they could customize, that they could work with our artists to create, the skill and the look of the skill, the look of the card themselves. We had like a mid-tier reward, which was like a $500 reward, which got you, everything that we were offering in the campaign, plus working with the artists who did all the chibi style art in that game to create their own chibi art. But then we had a higher tier, kind of our top tier, which was pledge 1,000. You get all the items that we're offering in the Kickstarter, but then you also get to create the normal form and the awakened form. So the front side card art and the back side card art for a character that you come up with. You name them, you name their skills, you help design their skills. We'll play test them and then we'll adjust accordingly so that they're balanced. But you're going to work with the illustrator to nail the aesthetic of your character as well, so that they look like whatever character you desire them to look like. They could look like you. They could look like whomever. And, it doesn't matter, but you're going to be an integral part of creating the actual visual design and character concept, backstory, and gameplay for this particular character. And so I'd like to bring that back. It is a little bit more work, which is why we have not done it since. It does require a lot of communication and translation and all of that. I think that although it's a pricey way to be involved in a project, we had 2 of those $1,000 spots for Sinome. Now one person ended up backing out, but both of those spots went within the first hour, and that was our first campaign. So there are folks out there who like that kind of thing. Beyond that, though, yeah, I mean, events are kind of like my big thing. That's how I want to get people involved. It's hard to do that when you don't have a physical space, but we've got Discord to do that, hence Operation Bulletstorm coming for Gun and Gun. I'm always thinking of ways to get people involved, though, and to just increase the overall backer experience, to get, to leave people with a positive impression of of being a part of the LionWing family. That's ultimately what I want. Is I want people to, when they think of LionWing, I want them to think of like, you know what, that's a cool company that's doing really unique stuff, that produces really cool games, and who actually care about the people they're selling games to. So I'm always open, though, for feedback and suggestions about what the community would like to see when it comes to community involvement. Ears are always wide open for that. Question 15, as a follow-up to that, how are you evaluating the return on investment for all the extra engagement? I'm not investigating the ROI on any of that stuff monetarily. If people are enjoying it, I'm going to do it. That's my return on investment with this stuff. If people show up for the tournaments, if they show up for the events, if they express excitement for getting prizes, Kickstarter exclusives, what have you, then I'm going to do them, and I don't really care about the cost. Now, I'm not going to go bankrupt because of it, but this stuff isn't going to bankrupt LionWing, so I don't worry about the cost. As long as people are digging it and enough people are digging it, I'm going to dig it too, and I'm going to keep doing it. Question 16. Are there other publishers that nail the feel you like in games? And what about in the video game space too? Yeah, so a couple that come to my mind when it comes to tabletop games. Level 99, I like Level 99 stuff. I like Plat Hat Game stuff because I love Summoner Wars. I love Catalyst Game Labs because I love anything Shadowrun, and they nail the Shadowrun vibe, and I love the Shadowrun vibe. There are plenty more companies, but those are just some that come to the top of my head. Video games wise, so Sega is my favorite video game publisher. As I mentioned before in many forums, an old, now defunct company called Working Designs is my all-time favorite video game localization and publishing company. As you can see from shelf 2, that's a Working Design shelf of Arc the Lad. But Sega is indeed my favorite company. They've always been my favorite company. They'll always be my favorite company. Which is why I was especially excited about Project Royal having so much of Sega's DNA in it with Sakura Wars. I liked Project Royal already for what it was offering, but seeing Sakura Wars vibes in it, very exciting. So I love Sega. I love Xseed. I love Axis. Though Axis does a lot of visual novels these days, and I just don't have a lot of time for visual novels. I love Capcom. Especially old Capcom. Oh, old Capcom is so sweet. But, modern day Capcom's fine too. I'm stoked about Resident Evil 8. Reviews just came in from Resident Evil 8 today. Not that I put a ton of stock in reviews for video games, but wow, that game looks cool. I like NIS. I like NIS America for the most part. Yeah, so all of those companies really kind of nail what I'm going for. I mean, Square Enix, of course. It's like a given. They're probably my second favorite publisher behind Sega. But there's so much space between Sega and everyone else. There's so much space between Square Enix and like the third spot as well. Like, because I really like Square Enix as well. But like Sega, All right. 17. Are we moving closer to Testament than ever before? I'd like to think so. Question 18. How do I talk to girls and not feel awkward? Well, you give yourself permission to feel awkward because there are worse things in life than feeling awkward. Question 19. Did we beat the record for the number of questions in an episode this week? We did not, but we tied it. And that is your Q&A section. It took over an hour. I feel like I need like a little jingle right now where I take like a break and then I come back. I feel like that would be very appropriate right now. But instead, I'm just going to keep powering through after I take this drink of water. Okay. Sai in the chat said, well, you missed 2. So technically, yeah, I don't count those 2. That's why they're not here. So 19 it is. I guess y'all will have to try harder next time. Try harder next week. Let's talk about project updates. Testament. I've got no news. I got an email this week from someone who seemed pretty frustrated about Testament. And I think the email was pretty straight to the point. I backed this a long time ago. Where is it? I don't know, man. I don't know where it is. If I knew it, I would tell you all, but I don't know where it's at. I don't think Japanime knows where it's at right now either. From my understanding, they've reached out to the people that they need to reach out to get word on what's happening with Testament. And from my understanding, they haven't gotten word back. But honestly, what you see from Japanime on the Kickstarter or on social or wherever you see their news, that's the same news that I have with Testament. We're not going, Japanime and I are not going back and forth on Testament, like an email or anything like that. We were at one point in time, but not anymore. Like our part in Testament is long over. We we did all the Kickstarter extras. We prepped the files for print. We sent it off. Done. We haven't had like close contact with Japanime in a while when it comes to that stuff, because it's not really our place, honestly. As the localization studio, again, we're billed as the co-publisher, but kind of co-publisher name, really just the localization studio. So I get my news about Testament mostly when y'all get your news about Testament. Okay, Wild Hunt Festival update. This is a big one, though most people already know this news by now because we've spread word on social media and on the Kickstarter and in the Discord. And that is we have a fulfillment date for, or a fulfillment time frame, I should say, for Wild Hunt Festival. And that is fulfillment begins early June through Fun Again. So you need to lock down your address and get in your late orders now. You have until next Tuesday to finish that up. After that, you can't lock down the address any longer. And if it goes to an old address, I'm sorry, but you had, well, I don't know, like 11 months to do that. So I don't know what to tell you if you waited this long. But seriously, lock down those addresses. This is so exciting. I mean, like so exciting for people to finally be able to play Wild Hunt Festival, for people to be able to dig into the lore. The lore was translated and edited and in some cases added to in a way that would give you an understanding of what was happening and would outline the characters and give you a good sense of what these characters are like. It was written in a way where you understood the world a little bit, but it was also written in the way to not answer every question you would have. It was written intentionally through Ramo-san and then localized in the same way to not give you all the answers of what you're looking for. So like when you read the quest log or when you read the character log, the character booklet, you'll get lots of answers and you'll learn lots about its world, about its people, about its town, about its customs, about what's happening in that world, but you won't know everything that's happening in that world. And that was very intentional. So it'll leave, I think, hopefully it'll leave people wanting more. It'll get people talking. It'll get people theorizing about other things that are happening in this world, or what this event means, or what that event means, or why was this, information omitted? Is that meaningful? Was it omitted on purpose? If it was, what kind of impact could that have? I'll make no bones about it because I've never made any bones about it. We plan on continuing to do stuff with Testament for a long time. Testament is, I want Testament to be an evergreen project, an evergreen product for us. And so Testament ain't going anywhere. You're going to get Wild Hunt Festival, here shortly. There's going to be more Testament to come in 2022. And more, like more. So I didn't want to answer, and Ramo-san didn't want to answer everything that could be answered with Wild Hunt Festival. You'll have to find out what happens to this world through additional entries in the series. And we are very much so into releasing additional entries in this series. So that's our Wild Hunt Festival update. Oh, by the way, I am so excited for people to try to get the achievements in Testament. So we included achievements in, did I say Testament? I meant Wild Hunt Festival. I'm really excited for people to try to obtain the achievements in Wild Hunt Festival. But we also did achievements for Testament. So there are achievements in Testament. There are achievements in Wild Hunt Festival. There will be achievements in all of our cooperative games. That's just the thing that we want to do. I'm really excited for people to check out the achievements in both of those games, but especially Wild Hunt Festival, because the achievements in Wild Hunt Festival are sick. They are so good. So good. Giving me goosebumps thinking about it. That's how good they are. So we showed off, I think, four. We showed off four in one of the earlier updates, but they're like the real tame achievements. They're very straightforward. But on the backside of that A6 card, you got some hard things to work toward. I'm so excited to hear how people, accomplish those achievements. All right, so that's Wild Hunt Festival. Let's move on to Gun and Gun. So Operation Bulletstorm kicks off. Week 1 kicks off May 16th, and it culminates in the actual bracketed tournament that Sunday, which is the 23rd. So May 16th until May 22nd, you'll be paired up. You'll have your round robin style. You'll have all week to schedule those matches and then play them and report the winners. And then the 23rd, you get put into a bracket. We have, I'm not going to say an all-day tournament because it's not going to last all day, but it is going to start at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's going to go until it finishes. And my guess is going to be a couple hours long. We are going to not only stream it, but we are going to provide commentary over top of that. You will not be able to hear the audio from the players over that. We will be muting that. The players will still hear one another, obviously, but on our end, we will be muting that, and you'll only hear the commentary over top of that. So that's Operation Bulletstorm. Lots of cool prizes there. Stickers, shirts, signed production proofs, a Discord title for the winner. Lots of good stuff. If you're interested, you can check out the pin that's in the Gun and Gun channel in the Discord. You can check out the latest Kickstarter update for Gun and Gun, and you can also go back a few tweets and find it, or a few posts on Facebook and find out all the rules and what the tournament is offering in those places as well. So Operation Bulletstorm is going to be sick. Notori and Kasane are now in Tabletop Simulator, and people love them. People like playing with Notori and Kasane. Some people might think that there's no way to beat Notori and Kasane. There most definitely are. We were talking about it in the Gun and Gun channel today. There's at least a handful of ways, surefire ways, that you can beat Notori and Kasane. So do not despair if you're playing your tournament matches and you are sitting across the field from Notori and Kasane, because although it's a very strong strategy to utilize Notori and Kasane, it is not an unbeatable strategy. Yes, also, so I'm not sure how this happened, but the current version of Ran in the Tabletop Simulator version, the skill description for her is not correct. So I went back. Someone was talking about Ran in the chat today, and they posted an image of her card talking about her skill. And it was one of those like double take moments where I like quickly checked the chat and I went to exit out of the chat to go do something else. And it was like that moment you see in movies where it's like a record scratch, like, and everything stops. And you're like, hold on a second, something's not right here. So I went and checked out the card that I think it was just a screen grab from the Tabletop Simulator version of Ran's card. And I realized, wait a second, that's not Rand's skill. And so I don't know how long it's been there. I don't know in what update things got messed up, but the version of Ran on Tabletop Simulator is not the actual version of Ran in the print version. So I saw this, right? I saw this in the Discord, and immediately, as you might imagine, like my heart sunk. I didn't freak out because I don't like freak out, but it was like a moment of like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to go check the proofs to make sure that we don't have a misprint already. So I first checked, I first checked the DTP files, the files we sent to the printer. Was like, scrolling through like, please don't have that on there. And I'm like, okay, thankfully the right version of Ran was sent to the printer. I checked my production proofs. It was the right version. So I don't know where or even how there was a misprint in those assets, because I don't remember there ever being a version of Ran that had the incorrect wording on it, that had the wording that's in the card, or that's on the card on the Tabletop Simulator version. It's very confusing how in the hell that happened. But essentially, so the version that is on Tabletop Simulator right now says that more or less that Rand can load up to one card into either of her guns from either deck, but it's actually Rand can load up to one card into each gun from either deck at the end of their turn. So check out the Discord channel for further clarification. I need to go and just pin that until I'm able to fix that card. I should be able to fix that card within the next day or so. But so people have been playing Rand. I mean, they've been playing her correctly as it is in Tabletop Simulator version, but on Tabletop Sim, that's not actual Rand. So people have been like, yo, Rand is not competitive. Like, if you're going to play in the slightest bit, like, with the intention to win a game, don't use Rand. And I'm thinking, the whole time I'm watching this conversation and like people just, just dunking on Rand. I'm like, all right, so like Rand is my least favorite character. And whenever like someone fields Rand against me, I'm not worried about it. I feel like I can deal with whatever she's going to throw at me. But like, she's not that bad. So I'm like, what is going on here? She's not worth dunking on this much. And now I know why, because in the current version, on Tabletop Simulator, she's pretty nerfed. So once you actually play her as intended, I think you will find that her win rate goes up. We've been tracking all of our stats for Gun and Gun, and she has the lowest win rate of the original core set gunners. And will she continue to have the lowest win rate? Probably. But I don't think there will be such a disparity between the amount of times she wins/loses when compared to her three other counterparts. So she's not as bad as you would think by playing the current TTS version. Let's see here. Wasn't the first version based on the Tabletopia assets? Yeah, but we had updated the TTS version many times since the Tabletopia version. The Tabletopia version has never been updated. No, that's not true. It got updated too. Yeah, I take that back. So somewhere in the updates, when we did our batch export of JPEGs, something got. I don't know if there just wasn't a box clicked in Photoshop, to switch out with how we have our files organized. I don't know if a box didn't get clicked. I don't know what happened there, but it's not in our final files, which is so strange because there should be like a trail of where things went wrong there that we'd be able to say, oh, okay, so like here's where the text got messed up, but we haven't been able to find that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I'm glad it's just the Tabletop Simulator version because that, it takes 10 minutes to patch. I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world if it was on the print version because I'm still waiting for the second round of print so I can make any edits I wanted to. But still, that's not something you want to contend with. All right, so that is Gun and Gun. Lastly, Embryo Machine. So, some good news about Embryo Machine. The stretch goal map is almost finished being illustrated. I just talked with Shigaki-san and Kawakami-san 2 days ago about this. They said that job has been with the artist now for a little bit, and they're just waiting on them to send in the final draft. So I'll have that to show off. I'm guessing within May, which is cool. But we've got some other news to show off, and I'm going to do it right now. So we've still been kind of hammering away at the STL files for the 3D printed miniatures of all the Embryo Machine units in the game. I just got Garu's finalized form. And so, take a look at the screen because I'm going to show it off. Boom. There is Garu. That is obviously the front side of Garu. Garu is so if you just play Garu as, right out of the box with its pre-built deck and its pre-established stats, Garu is a very aggressive mecha. That's like that's Garu's entire gimmick. It's just like aggression. So, for instance, people in Gun and Gun, if you really like playing Tori Kasane, you would love. Let me introduce you to Garu right here. So, very aggressive build out of the box. Good defense, good survivability, not like super, super great movement for being a mecha that relies upon CQB, close quarters combat. But even in light of that, is able to weather the storm long enough to get inside to just lay down the business. So I I actually do not like really playing as Gario, despite the fact that you would think, oh hey, you like Fornise, who's a very close quarters emphasized mecha, but Gario is like the slow version of Fornise. He's a little plodding. He'll get in there and he'll rough you up, and he's got some good medium. He's got some good mid distance, mid tier stuff too. But he can really just fuck people up once he gets inside. It just takes him a while to get there. I do not like that type of character. I love Fornise so much because Fornise is like that targeted assassin, in and out real quick. But this dude here is a brute. I mean, that's the best word to describe him. Gario is a brute. He can take whatever you're dishing out, and if you let him get inside your defenses, it's going to be hard to disengage from him or put enough space between you and him to do what you need to do to get rid of him, because he can keep coming. He can take hits. Because he does have good survivability, he can take those hits. He's got such strong close combat attacks, melee attacks, that he's just a beast to contend with. He's that. There are a couple EMs in Embryo Machine that you definitely don't want to let inside. Garo's one of them. I am talking to you, Sin. Yes, because I know you love those aggro decks and gun and gun. So Gario would be a good pick for you. Let's show another image of Gario here. There we go. Here's the backside of Gario. I love showing the backsides of these mechs because the backsides of these mechs did not exist prior to us creating these files. So I'm extremely just proud of what we've been able to do with creating the backside of all of these mechs from scratch. I mean, from scratch. We have no references. We've been given nothing. So we are doing this all on our own, just trying to visualize, all right, what would make sense for this mech? Like, let's take a look at the front. Let's take a look at a little bit of the sides. We don't even have all the sides. And let's just picture, based upon the information that we have, based upon its default playstyle, what do we think the back would look like? And here's what we've come up with. And some of the EMs have, more basic, more ergonomic backsides. Not Gario. Gario is one of the more complicated backsides, and a lot of it comes down to those spikes. But even still, there's a lot of intricacy in these joints right here, in these sockets, these exhaust valves right here. Again, the spikes, but even just like this detail on the back plate is just incredibly fantastic. And then all along the sides of the legs here, this is nothing we had. We didn't have these these recessed circles in the legs or these gears right here. We had none of this. This was all just like free form. Let's create it ourselves. And so that's been a really challenging but really rewarding part of working on these STL files. It's helped me connect with the mecha even more. I already felt very connected to these mecha. That's part of why I wanted this game, is because it's beautiful looking and it's very, very, very unique in appearance. But working on these mechs in this way has just drawn me to them even closer and has kind of tethered me in a way that I would not have gotten had I not been sitting with, the modeler, trying to come up with what do we think, the sides and the backs of these units are going to look like. And so it's presented me like with this unique opportunity to feel a type of closeness to these assets that I never would have gotten otherwise. So that's Gario. I really, really, really like how this model turned out, despite the fact that I will rarely use this model because I rarely play Gario. I really am proud and pleased with how it turned out. It just looks great. It's been a balancing act with creating these renders, these models. You want to maintain the poses of some of the other, or some of the Embryo machines, because their default poses are already, either striking or they're dynamic. But then you've got to decide for others who don't have as dynamic a poses, like what are we going to do with them? How are we going to enhance the look of this when you put it into model form? This was the only one where we said, you know what? the original pose is pretty straightforward. Just kind of like Garu standing there. We could put him into a more action pose like we have with Visner. But as we went back and forth, like, well, what could we do with this? And we were gathering, the artist and I were kind of like gathering reference images of different mecha. Like, well, we could do this, we could do this. We both decided, you know what? Garu, his design is pretty imposing. He looks imposing, despite the fact that he's actually, canonically, he's a fairly short Embryo Machine. But there's something to just his presence. He's got a presence where you don't even need to put him into a pose for you to get the vibe about what Garu is. You can look at this pose right here and you know what this dude's about. And that's what I like about this specific pose, and that's why we didn't touch it. This pose is pretty much an exact copy of what you see in the actual game itself on Garu's EM board. It's straightforward, but Garu is the type of character that doesn't need anything more than straightforward. He's got such a presence about him that I just love. Sin in the chat, I just happened to look at the chat, and Sin just said, these files still have me incredibly excited. I'm glad they do. Sin. They have me incredibly excited too. I probably am a little bit more excited than most people, because I've been, involved in the creation of these things. And so again, I do feel like very, very proud of how these things look, but it gets me hyped knowing that other people are hype about, what we're producing here. And that goes across like all of our games, not just Embryo Machine. Anytime someone's like, yo, this game has me really excited, like it just like warms my heart. But with these, especially since we've had to put in so much work and since we've never done anything like this before, it's cool to get, the positive feedback that people are liking this stuff, despite this being our first attempt at modeling. So, yeah, I really like this pose, and I think it fits. I think it really fits. So, that's Embryo Machine. No further updates there. We'll be showing off these images as well as some additional ones in EM's next update, which I think I had originally wanted to get out an update this week on EM. I'm not sure I will. If I do, it'll happen on Friday. But if I don't get it out Friday, it's going to happen on Monday. So there'll be an update coming. I was hoping that I'd have the map art ready for the next update, but I don't know when that's coming in. Soon is the most detail that I've got on that, and I don't want to just like keep waiting, because soon could mean, you never know what someone's definition of soon is. So it's like soon could mean like the 4th week of May or something. So I'm probably just going to post that regardless, either Friday or Monday, and I'll be posting more of these images. So if you want to see different angles and whatnot, definitely check out that update, because there'll be more of those. Now for the Project Royal updates, someone in the chat said, no, not for the Project Royal updates, other than we will be revealing the game in about 2 weeks. We typically do a 3 to 4 week ad campaign before the game goes live on Kickstarter. This game will probably be a little bit more popular than our past games, so we are going to give it an extra week for the ads and before the campaign goes live. So this will be more like a 5-week pre-campaign ad push, which is exciting. I mean, not exciting because it costs me more money, but exciting that we're going to be doing a little bit more work in that regard. And that's the best that I can give right now about Project Royal. Other than, we're pretty far along. Preview copies were sent out this week. Still got one that I have to send out. The first press release is now finished. I just sent over all the assets for the trailer to be created. We're using a new person for the trailer with 3D component mock-ups and whatnot, so it's going to be a different kind of trailer. Probably have voiceover instead of text. I tend to like animated text. If you look at any of the trailers we've ever done since Testament, they all follow a very similar format, a very similar look. They're presented in the same way. They're more text-heavy trailers, and that's the type of trailer that I like. For this game, though, I think it might make a little bit more sense to use voiceover work just because we can get more information out about the game. And this is definitely a game that has more moving parts than all of our previous games. And so I want to make sure that we are explaining it the best that we can in the 90 to 100 seconds that we have for the Kickstarter trailer. I don't like our trailers to go much longer than a minute and a half, minute and 45, if I can help it. Sometimes it can't be helped, but I think it could be helped here. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is we're going to hopefully employ some voice work. It'll ultimately depend on if I'm happy with the voice work that we have available to us. For me, sometimes bad voiceover can completely put me off from a game. I know that's not fair to the game because it's like it's a fucking game. Like voiceover work in a trailer should have no bearing on whether you back it or not. But unfortunately, I guess I'm a fickle bastard, and sometimes it does. So I want to make sure if we're going to use voiceover work that it's mostly good. So you did try to get some updates. But I mean, you got a little bit of updates, right? You had some. You know that we're sending out review copies, and we got a press release written, and we sent off the assets to the video person. I mean, so you got nothing. Sorry, trying to spin it here. And that's it. So an hour and a half later, we got through it all. Let me check my notes. Yep, we got through it all. So thanks everyone for joining, for sticking with me for an hour and a half, if not more. I need to look at the actual runtime. Let's see where we are at. Hour and 36 minutes. Yeah. So thanks for sticking with me for a little over an hour and a half. It means a lot. I love having you all in the chat. I love your questions. I love now this like push to try to like beat the last week's question total, which is, I just sort of said jokingly in last week's, show, but y'all took it serious and tried to top it. And although Sai is saying, actually, you beat it by 2 questions, I got the official count, and my official count is 19, which means you tied it. So you're going to have to do better than 19 next time, I guess. But seriously, thanks everyone for joining, for being a part of this, for showing up each week, for asking questions each week, for showing LionWing support. And, you know, the wait is almost over for getting your first 2 LionWing games. It's wild that, you know, we've been doing this for as long as we've been doing it, and we're just now getting some LionWing games happening, you know. It is what it is, right? 2020, a weird year, and it messed up a lot of things. So I'm glad we're at where we're at now, though. It's really exciting, and I can't wait for people to dive into Testament and Wild Hunt Festival, and then Gun and Gun, and then Embryo Machine and Project Royal and everything else. So it's an exciting time. I'm glad to have you all on board. Thank you so much for your support. You guys are the absolute best, and we'll do this again as we do every week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. EST here on Twitch, and don't forget to join us on Mondays for LionWing Plays. Until next time, folks, I'm Bradley Hailstorm. See you.